Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below for Cascadia Landmarks or any other game. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going back to the Cascadia region where we're going to be building different terrain types, putting different animals on them, but we're also going to be finding new landmarks to make our tableau even better. Today we're taking a look at Cascadia Landmarks. This is the new expansion for the previous Spiel des Jahres winner from AEG. Let me show you what's new in this and I'll see you on the other side. Now the star of the show here obviously is the landmarks. I have one landmark shown for each of the different terrain types, and these are going to give you different types of goals. You'll only be able to get one of each of the terrain types, where this says, at the end of the game, you'll combine your two largest river sort of groupings to, for the majorities and such. And you'll also get this big piece. And again, you only get one of each of these at most. This one, it's great if you just have one large mountain sort of grouping, but every grouping after that's -1. So if you get this, then you're kind of wanting to get this. 3 points, just straight up. This one's a point for each hawk that's on a wetland. Or here's like you add a size of 2 to the largest forest when scoring, so things like that. Now what happens is, for each terrain type, you're going to use one card for the amount of players. So if you're playing a 4-player game, each of those terrains are going to have 4 possible landmarks. Now, when you place tiles, if you've placed sort of your 5th contiguous section of a terrain or more, you can decide, instead of placing an animal token, you take the token of this and you take one of the cards that's still there, like 1 point for every salmon that's on a prairie, or 3 points for each pair of keystone, the one with the feathers, occupied of prairies, or score 1 for each unique animal on a prairie corridor, or so 1 for each separate sort of grouping of prairies. And you would take this and you'd put it on that tile, which means you're not putting an animal on that tile, which you might want. So let's say you put your 5th prairie out that's sort of touching in one large contiguous group. You might not want to take this yet because A, there might not be someone that close to getting it, and B, you might really want to put the animal token on it for end game scoring and such. But at some point you're going to want to take this and get the one you really want and place it on that tile. But again, this is taking a space on that tile, and once that's there, you cannot place an animal on there. So it's kind of like, am I going to put an animal on there, or am I going to take the landmark and put the landmark on there? That's kind of some of the tough decisions there. Now the game comes with more gold cards. They all have this logo on them for the expansion. And there's actually 3 gold cards for each animal. All right, so here's 1 of each, but it comes with 3 of each. And these goals tend to be a little bit more, complicated or a little harder to keep track of than some of the other goals, but it is an expansion. And you can mix these right in when, setting it up. Of course, if you're playing it with new players, I would recommend using, the starting one still from the base game. Now, some new tiles added in the game as well. First of all, there's some new starter tiles, and these have a triple animal on one of them. Now, this game comes with more animal tokens and more tiles, and they all have this little logo on it to let you know it's from the expansion. And this is because now you can play this game with 5 to 6 players, but it does so in an interesting way to keep downtime down. First of all, some of these keystone tiles in the expansion, they have an animal, but they have 3 terrains on them, which is kind of cool. Anyway, everyone's going to get a random set of tiles and 1 animal of each type. Now, over the course of the game, typically the game's 20 turns long. However, when you play with 5 to 6 players, you can use this. You can also use this if you play with less than 5 or 6 players, if you really want to. And how this works is, instead of playing 20 turns, you're going to play 15 turns. And 5 times over the course of the game, because you have 5 sort of tiles here, after you take a normal turn, by the time it gets to your next turn, you can take any one set of these. It's kind of like a private tile pool. You could take a pair as normal and place it in your tableau there. And so you have some forward planning that what you can get. You'll always be able to get one of these animals and such. You can also spend one of the pine cones to swap this like that and then take things like that. Now this is interesting because you can play with this. This helps keep downtime down because now you're only playing 15 turns because you're doing this in between your turns. But you can also play with less than 5 or 6 players, and I like that still because it gives you some forward planning there. And so that's it. That's pretty much the end. The good thing is you get to mix all of these tiles and all these things in the bags, whether or not you're playing with the expansion or not, and I love that. Before we get to the moment you've been waiting for, I wanted to let you know that Game Toppers Kickstarter 4.0 is coming soon. Well, they'll have 10 new thematic game mats, including Vincent Dutray's Lost Worlds Jungle Mat, and new accessories and storage solutions, along with custom thematic art on rails of the Game Toppers, and they're giving away the new Young Sherlock Game Topper package, which is great as a movable coffee table, children's gaming table, and for puzzles. Scan the QR code or go to GameToppersLLC.com to enter and win now. All right, best thing about this isn't even actually the landmarks, which are good, I'll get to that in a minute, but it's actually the private tile pool. This is similar to the private dice pool in Sagrada's 5 to 6 player expansion, which is interesting because this expansion also adds 5 to 6 players, but brings it in through a similar way of having your own private pool. I love this. The rules say that you can play with this with less than 5 to 6 players, but you pretty much have to play with 5 to 6 players. Same thing with Sagrada. I will always play with this because not just because it kind of speeds the game up, but being able to see 5 tiles and knowing that you have one of each animal at least once per game that you can grab, and you can even swap with the pine cone, is awesome because it gives you some future planning. You can be a little bit more risky and be like, you know what, I'm gonna take this now because I really need this over here because I know I have this in my back pocket here a little bit later. And the fact that you can just, over the course of the game, 5 different times in between your turns, you're gonna take, the animal and the tile and place them. I love that. That is the best part of this. It was the best part of that expansion for Sagrada. For me, it's the best part of this expansion. And it seems interesting. I love it. I think it's awesome. I would never not play with this. The landmarks definitely give you more goals to think about, right? You're starting to work on certain, they call them corridors, but contiguous groups of different terrain. As you get closer to getting 5 of them, you're gonna start looking at some of those goals and going, okay, I've got 3 of these things and 4 of these things. Let's look at the goals of those 2. Ooh, wow, this one over here, that's 3. This goal's really gonna be good with what I'm going for. The 4, there's a couple of good ones, but I might be able to wait on that. So now you start building up the terrain that you have less of to try to get the race to get the goal that you are really needing on there. I love that. The timing of this is great. So that's the biggest thing. The landmarks not just give you another goal to think about, they change the timing of which tiles you take because you're trying to sort of race to get your 5th contiguous tile of a certain terrain type, but you're also sometimes not trying to race because, again, you might prioritize another terrain type that you're not as close around to do that. I love that aspect of it. Also, I like that you can't place an animal on the tile that you placed the landmark because you might even put your 5th tile in a contiguous group and you might have a goal that you really want, but is that goal going to be better for you than placing that specific animal on there that might really be opening things up or setting yourself up for one of the end game goal cards? So now you've got this competing things sometimes where you're like, oh, I've got my 5th of this landmark. I really want that goal, but you know what? That's gonna get me X amount of points, maybe at best. This one over here is already gonna get me X amount of points. So now sometimes you don't wanna place the landmark tile on that because it's got a great animal, right? And so it's like, I don't know, it just changes the decision space. It makes the game deeper without a lot of mechanisms, and I like that aspect of it. I also like that the extra tiles and animals, there's a bunch of extra tiles and animals that allow you to just play with 5 to 6 players, so you just throw them all in. Those are my favorite types of expansions where you just throw them all in. It gives you all the variability. And then the rules just tell you how many more you need to take out now that you've added them all in. Negatives on the game. Number 1, the tile backs, actually you can tell the difference. Anytime you do a printing in different times, it's almost impossible to get them to look exactly right. But if you put 2 tiles next to each other on the back, I could tell you which one's from the expansion, which one's not, just from looking at it. I'm not sure how much that really matters in this game, but they definitely don't match. Second thing is, there was no update to the rulebook onto how to score habitat majorities for the 5 to 6 players. Because in the base game, it's like, oh, if you're playing with like 2 players, it's this. If you're playing with 3 or 4 players, here's how the points work. I'm pretty sure that there needs to be a different scoring when there's 5 or 6 players for majority because it's harder to win a majority with 5 or 6 players. Is there a 3rd place now? I don't know. What is the first and second place for 5 or 6 players? It's not in the rulebook. I don't know why. I can't imagine that you'd use the same scoring for 3 to 4 players. That doesn't make any sense. So where is it? I'm a little unsure. I put a post on Board Game Geek. I haven't heard back. A little weird. Even if it was the same, they should have said it was the same, but I don't think it should be. So I'm kind of waiting to see what this is. I mean, essentially I just made up my own because it's not, I just kind of scaled it. So that's it. Now, also with 5 to 6 players, and you add all the landmarks, this becomes a huge table hog because everyone's building their own tableau, but also if you play with 6 players, now each of those landmarks have 6, so each of those terrain types have 6 landmark cards. Now they're smaller cards, but there's 30 little cards out there now, right? So there's a lot of cards out there, and it's a table hog. It takes up like one side of the table where the 6th player would usually be sitting. So it's tough. You need a huge table if you're gonna play with 6 players and the expansion. But you could play with just 6 players and just play with the quick variant with the extra things. That's fine too, if you need to. Overall, I like the expansion. Adds a lot of interesting things, a lot of deep decision space without a lot of rules, overhead, and a lot of complexity. So, I mean, if you play a lot of Cascadia and you want to be able to have a little bit more control over things, but also have some more things to think about, it's a no-brainer, really. If you don't play it a whole lot, I mean, is it worth it to you? I don't know how much money you're getting, but I really think even if you just played with that private pool there, it makes a big difference. So that's what I think about Cascadia Landmarks. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table into a high-quality gaming solution, but they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with over 20 styles of thematic game mats in 11 different sizes from notable board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and real cool accessories, experience what thousands of other gamers enjoy by upgrading every game you play with a Game Topper system. Save hundreds of dollars on Game Topper package deals that are in stock now for immediate shipping at GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below.